I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, just like the words I used to know, where the treetops glisten and children listen to hear sleigh bells in the snow. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, with every Christmas card I write. May your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, just like the words I used to know, where the treetops glisten and children listen to hear sleigh bells in the snow. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, with every Christmas card I write. May your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases, may all your
And yes, advanced Merry Christmas to everyone from around the
Merry
world.
Right.
Christmas.
Yes.
Merry Christmas.
And Merry Christmas. So it's just the same as we talked about in the last episode. You know, just because we have COVID-19 these days, it doesn't mean that we could not have a Merry Christmas. So hi again, guys, and of course, welcome back. From our last performance, from our song fest, which we did for our COVID victims and COVID survivors, I believe it's really proof. It's evidence that music isn't just for entertainment. It's actually a living and breathing element that could inspire people and that can instigate a particular movement that could bring improvement or betterment to our lives. So, again, mabuhay and good evening to everyone from around the world. Once again, I am Sam.
I am Anton, and good afternoon to the other parts of the world.
Tao An, I'm Nina, and good morning to the rest of the world. Welcome to muSiCahAn.
Right. Thank you, guys. And of course, we are with a special guest. Okay, but before we introduce her to you, this is going to be a very special topic that we have today, because it's not just focused on music as a way of entertainment or as a way of performance. Today, we will also be looking into the scientific side of music and how music and arts in general can be used as an intervention for therapy or for the betterment of one's mental, emotional, and physical state. Actually, if I may share just for a moment, logical or scientific components that are involved in music, these components are found in the oscillation or the frequencies that music produces, which can actually affect the brain. This kind of frequency or oscillation actually could also produce different types of mood and perception in a person. Let me just share for a moment, because several years back, I was able to read this article, and this was regarding a research that was conducted in the University of Montreal. Now, this was conducted specifically in McGill University in Montreal. And during this experiment, they actually gathered about 200 people to be part of this experiment. Now, these 200 volunteers were given two types of experiments. The first experiment allowed them to listen to the favorite type of music, or to the music that they loved listening to, while the second experiment allowed these volunteers to listen to the type of music that they were neutral about, or that they did not have any particular significance towards to. So in this case, they noticed some very stark differences. And one particular thing that they noticed was that for the people who listened to their favorite music, they actually felt what we call musical friction. I think musical friction is a scientific term which means chills. So these are chills that they feel down their spine. Now, sometimes we experience that too, right? When we get scared or when we get excited, we feel that kind of chill down our spine. So, it's amazing to find out or to discover from this article that I read that this chill is not just something that we imagine in minds. It actually has a scientific implication to that, and it's an indication of the neurotransmitter called dopamine being produced in our body, which is responsible for our happy or good mood. And music is one of those tangible components that can produce dopamine in the body. So it's very interesting, and I'm sure that Faith could also share a lot of scientific components related to music intervention and medical practice. So let's get to know who Faith is, and she's someone that our co-host Kuya Anton was able to invite. So thank you, Kuya Anton. And who is our guest for today, Kuya?
Yes, our very special guest for today is Miss Christine Faith Moral. Faith is a licensed psychometrician is a faculty member of Miriam College Department of Psychology. She does psychological testing and assessment with AAAI, Assessment Psychologists Incorporated. She also designs and facilitates expressive arts-based interventions like creative retreats and wellness workshops with Art Psych Circle Inc., a group of psychology professionals that caters to individuals from various normative and vulnerable populations. The frontliners, children and adolescents with history of abuse and neglect, convalescing soldiers, disaster survivors, children in conflict with the law, children with autism and special needs. Currently, during the quarantine period, she volunteers as psychosocial support service provider for UP Diliman's Psychosocial Services, UPD PsychServe, providing support to frontliners and anyone who may be socio-emotionally affected by the pandemic. She also devotes her time with Luna's collective, providing psychosocial support for individuals with experience of gender-based violence. She graduated from the University of the Philippines in Diliman with a degree of Bachelor of Arts in Psychology and is now completing her degree of Master of Arts in Psychology in the same university. At present, she is working on her thesis on the effectiveness and efficacy of therapeutic songwriting as an adjunct intervention for adolescents with history of depression. Well, I'm really impressed with all the things that you've been doing and the fact that you are a volunteer for a psych support group. No? Please allow me to breathe for a few seconds because I'm full with her credentials. So she's doing a great job and great things.
Wow, I totally agree with you, Kuya Anton. And thank you for introducing her to us. So it's a great pleasure to meet you personally, Miss Faith Moral. But please forgive me. I tend to have pronunciation issues, even with our previous guest, which was a bit embarrassing. But yes, how do we pronounce your last name? Is it Moral or Moral? Moral. Moral. Okay. I just have to say this on this program, and I really like your name because as we talked among ourselves, I mean, for me and my co-hosts, we talked among ourselves how Christian like your name is, and how there's and so much brightness and positivity in your name. So anyhow, thank you again for being here. There are a couple of things we'd like to understand about music intervention. So please tell us what made you interested in psychology in the first place, and how is being a psychometrician different from being a psychiatrist and a psychologist?
All right. Thank you, Sam. Thank you also, Sir Anton, for that wonderful introduction. And also, hi, Nina. Okay, so for your first question, you're asking what made me interested in psychology. So, before I even applied in college, um, before I even applied in college, I actually have been interested in psychology because I wanted to help out my friends. Actually, in high school, because what I observed is that my friends were experiencing different social emotional problems with their families, and all I could do is observe and listen
Mm.
to them when they want to express themselves, when they want to rant, when they want to share about their problems. But I feel ill-equipped to deal with that, especially since, of course, I was very young back then.
Mm.
But I thought that I could do something about it in the future if I studied psychology. So I would know how to deal with those kinds of problems. I would know how to help them out if ever they still would have those kinds of problems. So that actually motivated me to pursue psychology in college. Um, when it comes to your question about how my profession now as a psychometrician differs from being a psychiatrist and a psychologist, actually, it's relatively new that the government has mandated that professionals in psychology should have to undergo licensure exams to become professionals. And there are two kinds of it under the Board of Psychology. One is as a psychometrician. So a psychometrician only needs to have finished the bachelor's degree before taking the licensure exam. And in practice, what we do is we administer tests, we score psychological tests, we interpret some psychological tests as well. So these are intelligence tests, personality tests, and other scales that measures social emotional adjustment and so on. So that's primarily the work of a psychometrician, and we are supervised by a psychologist if we are to create an evaluation of an individual. It mainly differs from a psychologist because a licensed psychologist can do that without supervision, but also can conduct therapy, can conduct counseling, again without supervision, especially for those who have had adequate training already in practice. So yeah, so there's a difference between those two professions, but a psychiatrist is actually way different, sort of, because to be able to become a psychiatrist, one must have finished medicine. So
Mhm.
they are medical doctors compared to psychometricians and psychologists who need to only finish a degree and an advanced degree in psychology. So a psychiatrist, the main difference now, among other things, would be that a psychiatrist can prescribe medications to individuals who have been diagnosed with certain kinds of psychological conditions or psychiatric conditions. So yeah, that's the difference between those two.
Yeah, that's very interesting and inspiring also, and I can relate to that. I'm glad that I was able to persuade you to join us today, Faith. So thank you so much for accepting our invitation. By the way, we'd like to know more about music therapy and its benefits on human behavior. So my first question is, what are the various types of arts-based intervention that you implement? And the second one is, what do you mean by therapeutic songwriting, and what effects does your intervention have on adolescents with history of depression?
Create one song about their life. So it actually depends on the goal of the sessions or the goal of the program. But for this particular session or program that I'm running, this is to for them to reflect on their lives and see how their lives progress from the current status or current state that they are experiencing to something more positive. So and how it affects the adolescents' lives or their experiences is that there are actually three things that happen within an active music making intervention. One is that it increases meaningfulness in the clients or in the patients' lives. So what Sam mentioned earlier about experiencing chills, so that's
Mm,
part of that. The experience of pleasure in taking part in something as aesthetic as music. So that experience actually brings about a positive feeling. It kind of sparks the life back to them. Also, another aspect of music making that brings about change is the physicality. So when you create music, when you use instruments, you are brought to action. Now, so there's already movement. When you play the instruments, you are now motivated to move your body, and that's part of the elements that could be healing to an individual who's experiencing depression. Because in depression, you are you lose that sense of life within you. So there is lack of motivation in moving, in even getting out of the bed. No, but when you're creating music, it kind of facilitates that movement. And also, the last element that is important in that kind of intervention is the relational aspect. So in relating with the facilitator or in relating with the people within the group, in making music with everyone, that kind of gives the feeling of there is human connection among the participants and between the patient or the client and the facilitator. So I think Sam also mentioned about this earlier that human interaction actually really has a great impact on our subjective feelings or subjective experience of life. Because one of the things that we need in order to experience life more meaningfully, the human connections that we have. So yeah, so those are the three basic elements that could bring about change. But also in therapeutic songwriting, there could be several goals. One is to build the self-esteem and self-confidence of the client. So when you create something, you realize that you have
Mm.
that capacity to create something beautiful or create something. Doesn't have to be conventionally beautiful, but just the act of creation could spark self-confidence or could heighten self-confidence and self-esteem within that individual. Also, it facilitates choice and decision making. So when you're creating a song, you choose very carefully the words that you're putting in the lyrics. You also choose very carefully the chords that you're gonna use if you're
Mm.
using a string instrument, or the notes that you're gonna use if you're doing it on a piano, for example. So that kind of facilitates decision making in the client, which may not be as active when you are feeling down, di ba? Another is the development of sense of self, through the reflections while creating the music. As I've mentioned earlier, this happens gradually, doesn't happen in just one session, and that's why it should happen in several sessions because for every prompt for reflection, the client gets to examine a part of the self that otherwise they wouldn't have examined on their own. Also, I think I've mentioned it earlier as well, the externalization of emotions, thoughts, and fantasies could help because instead of ruminating on these emotions and these thoughts, they start to put it out there and examine it from an outsider's point of view and see it from a different perspective. So, in essence, they could examine what they're experiencing objectively. So, and through that, through all of these experiences, the hope is that they could gain insight about the self, and when they have generated that insight, they could actually be able to do something about it and address these things that they need to address in further interventions. So, music-based interventions is actually not designed as a standalone. No, it could be an adjunct to talk therapy or counseling. But the idea is music serves as the fuel or the lubricant so that the client could have more motivation, no? Because the idea is that music is very universal, like what you have mentioned, and people are really interested in it and find comfort in listening to music and being with music. I personally have that experience. No? I see music as a constant companion. So when I'm feeling down, I would listen to sad songs because it makes me feel like something or someone could empathize with me. And so that entity in and of itself is a useful tool in facilitating a therapeutic relationship between the facilitator or the therapist and the client. So yeah, so basically that's what goes on in a therapeutic songwriting and a music-based intervention session.
Wow, that's that's very true. Everything you said, I experienced them. Because that's why I said earlier I can relate to that. Everything that you mentioned. Because I experienced depression in 2013 and it went on until 2015. So I started. That's why I mentioned Sunshine Place. It's like it's a clinic. It's like a clinic for the seniors. And I started with painting. Because when you experience depression, you have lots of fears. You don't want to go out. You don't want to stand up and after the night, you don't want to go out. I have fear of riding a public vehicle. Yeah, there are lots of fears. You don't know what's happening. You don't really know what to do, because when you wake up, you feel like you will die immediately. It's like that. It's anxiety attacks. It's depression. It's you don't know where to go. And the thing you mentioned, Faith, is you need to talk to someone with the same situation. So because when you're depressed, you think that you are alone. You're the only one experiencing that. So it's really very hard. So people will not understand you, whether you are having tantrums or you're just very grouchy. Those are the emotions that you create. There's no happy moments whatsoever. There's no happy moments. So you need to you push yourself with other people, so you can go over it, and you can. But it's not a cure, right? There's no cure. I think it goes on and off. Like a psychiatrist, they give you medicines just to put yourself to sleep. But one thing I went to is a psychologist, and she is church based. So she talks about meditation. So, and also I would like to mention that you won't be able to cry even if you're experiencing those things. You won't be able to cry. That's the hard part. So when I went to the psychologist, she taught me how to meditate, and after the meditation, my tears fell. It's like a pail of tears. So you stretch out and put all the emotions out. So that's the good thing about support from psychologists, psychiatrists, or because I went to some doctors and my tests are all negative. So it's all in here. So you need to have support also, talk therapy, and you go out with friends. You talk to your family. You really need that, and thank you very much, Faith, for coming in muSiCahAn, because it will really help others, especially the students who are undergoing anxiety problems and depression. We can help others, really. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. So I actually prepared with me a music guided imagery exercise. So this is a music video of sorts with a narration that is a prompt to those who are listening and watching the music video to imagine a scenario where they are approaching a state of relaxation. So this is just one of the approaches that we use in music-based interventions, which would fall under receptive music therapy. So that category, there are actually if I may, there are actually two categories in music therapy. One is receptive music therapy. So the activities that are involved here would be mainly listening to pre-recorded or live music, or like this one, a prompt to imagery. Okay, so and also some of the interventions involving receptive music therapy is that after listening to music, you discuss the lyrics of the music and resonate to the parts that made the most sense to the client, and also just listen. So yeah, so to relax. Okay, so that is one category. But another category is what we call active music therapy, and therapeutic songwriting is part of that. So, but other than that, so we have the um, careful composition of a song from scratch. So these are original compositions, but also under active music therapy, we have the creation of a song by replacing lyrics from an existing one. So we retain the melody and then you just replace the lyrics of a popular song, or you can also do improvisation. So basically, it could be an individual doing this, doing the improvisation on his own or her own, but it can also be a duet or as a group. So it's the use of different musical instruments and also through singing that you come together to make music spontaneously and extemporaneously. Also, there's the other ways no, under active music therapy, which would be singing with the music. So, because you're actually still creating music using your voice. So, yeah, but this one that I'm going to show now is an example of receptive music therapy, specifically music guided imaging.
Begin by finding a comfortable, relaxed position. We will be going on a journey. Allow your body to relax as we begin. Take a cleansing breath in and breathe out the tension in your body. Let's do it one more time. Breathe in and out. In and out. As you listen to the music, feel the relaxation creeping in, one body part at a time. If you feel that any part of your body is feeling tense, let go of that tension until you feel completely rested. Now, for the rest of this exercise, continue to take slow, deep breaths while focusing on the music and what I say. Let the music inspire you to create an image in your mind of your ideal state of being. Imagine this ideal state as a place of rest. Gradually take one step forward and forward and forward you go to this quiet place. You may take a while to get to your ideal state or to your ideal place. It's okay. You will eventually get there. Let the music guide you and bring you there. The music that you hear will be your company as you begin your journey to a place of peace, silence, and serenity. Look around you as you take each tiny little step. Take in everything in your senses. Take note of everything you see, hear, smell, taste, and feel. Be in the moment as you continue to inch your way towards your peaceful respite. All around are reminders that you're alive and you have a life. The air that you breathe, the rays of the sun touching your skin, the tiny little plants and the towering trees, the people that you meet, the faces that you see. All of them reminds us that we are here in our life's journey, breathing, living, alive. Continue on with your journey, bearing in mind these hints of life. Now, let's slowly wind down. Focus on my voice. Gradually come back to the here and now. Feel the coolness or warmth of your room, the smell of your sheets, or the food being cooked, the hardness or softness of the chair you're sitting at, or the bed you're lying on, the steadiness of the floor that touches your feet, or mattress that supports your body. When you're ready, take a deep breath and out, in and out, and you may open your eyes.
Actually, this was an amazing video, and it shows how the work of science and art can bring out something beautiful when they join forces together, right? So thank you so much, Miss Faith, and of course, I hope that you would still continue to be an inspiration to others. But before that, I believe that Nina has something to say. Nina, do you have any questions for Faith today?
Yeah, thank you for that, Faith. If there's anything both psychology and music share in common, is that they're both universal. They both encompass and interconnect everything in diversity. So, what made you decide to take further studies in therapeutic songwriting? And how would you encourage other people to study and support music therapy and other art based intervention for medical or psychological practice?
Thank you, Nina. I actually have before I decided to take psychology, I already love music. So that's actually my first love, music. And then now I thought that this is a great opportunity to put those two passions together. So, and then there are now new approaches being developed and being shared to the public in terms of like providing psychosocial support and interventions to psychological conditions. So I thought that this is a great way to put those two things that I love together. That's why I decided to pursue a topic that is close to my heart. So that is therapeutic songwriting. But I also feel like at this point in my career and in my studies that I need to um, train more and I need to study more because actually music therapy as a discipline, you need prior training in music. So you need to take up music first before you can pursue music therapy, and that's something that I lack the professional training.
Mhm.
So yeah, so because everything that I know about music is just from experience, from listening to music, and just some minor training in using certain instruments when I was very young. So everything is self-exploratory on my end. So probably that's also something that I could impart to the people who are watching, that even if you're not um, professionally trained in a certain field, you can explore these things that you love. So you can explore them on your own, you can read up on it, you can also try looking at materials online, and just equip yourself, while the chance is not yet there for you to pursue actual education and training in that field that you are interested in. So, yeah. But the fortunate thing for me is that an opportunity that I be part of this group, Art Psych Circle, as I've mentioned, presented itself when I took a course in grad school, which is expressive arts based therapy. So that opened up the doors for me where I could practice what I love doing, which is putting together music and psychology to help others. Yeah, so uh, So yeah, that's basically my advice to people who may be interested in this, because in the Philippines, there's actually a few people who are practicing music therapy. There are also a few institutions that offer that kind of course, and if you really want to be trained as one, the more institutions now available to provide that kind of training and education are abroad. So, and sometimes this could be a limitation. No? Like for me, it's a limitation because I'm not yet done with my master's degree. I haven't finished it yet. So I have to finish it first before I pursue further studies. So, but for now, I think I'm able to practice what I would like to practice in the future, of course, with supervision through this group.
Right. Well, thank you. Well, that's very inspiring, especially to our new generation today, because I think a lot of people still don't know, or they do not want to know about music therapy, because it just sounds like something that someone would do during their free time. You
Mm.
know, I don't think a lot of people really take it seriously or professionally yet, but hopefully in its stage it would begin to grow and expand even more in the next coming years here in the Philippines and all over the world. Hopefully you could be the perfect example for that, Faith. So please pursue that dream. Pursue that dream. So thank you so much. Thank you
We
again for
encourage you,
joining
Faith.
us.
Keep
And
on
Yeah.
doing it. Music therapy
yes,
is definitely
Yes.
very
yes.
important. And who knows, you could be one of the pioneers, Miss
Mm,
Faith Morale. And we are glad
mm.
to interview you in muSiCahAn in
Thank you.
2020.
So thank you again, Faith, for coming, and thank you so much for all the insights that you've shared with us today. So just before we end, we still have one final music piece to show, and I believe that this is some kind of meditation music as well. It was meant to bring calmness or tranquility to our viewers and listeners. So this piece is actually called "River Flows in You" by Yirama, and this will be interpreted by our co host, Miss Karina Chang, on the piano. So let's listen.